You have been here before. So have I. We might not have known it on a conscious level, but we know it by the feeling. The space that is seemingly outside of its time. It somehow feels transitional to us on a basic level. You feel as if you should keep moving through it. You may even feel like there is something behind you, and if you stop, it might catch up to you. We don't put words to this normally. We just do what feels natural and go on with our lives. But what if we did stop? Let's talk about liminal spaces. And in order to understand this, or to really even get a grasp of what I'm talking about, you have to know something about the way worlds in 3D are designed, like video games, any 3D rendering engine. And you also have to understand what no clip refers to. No clip was a term mainly developed by id Software in the early 90s. It's derived from a command typed into a PC game console for debugging purposes. What it means is if you were to enter this command and execute it in the console while testing the engine of the game or the actual map designs, you would not be constrained by the game's physics. You would not be constrained by the walls and the entities in it. You would be able to move through solid objects and nothing could interact with you while you were no clipping. No clip just basically refers to the ability to travel through solid objects and to not have to interact with the entities and objects in the world. Now, you've also heard of let's say the simulation theory. The idea that we could be a computer program run on a massive mainframe somewhere, or even the products of an artificial intelligence that has grown so big wherever it's at that it has shaped this current reality. I mean, there's a lot of different avenues you can take with that. But if that were the case, then this would be a program, okay? And it would have rules that we had to follow, but it would also have ways around those rules. This is probably starting to sound a little bit familiar. The premise is the same. Computer program, a simulation, and we believe it's reality, and we are constrained by the physics of reality. But what if you could turn those off, or have a way of making them not interact with you? What if there were, in this simulation, if there were areas in the simulation where you could actually breach and no clip through that reality, the constraints, the laws of that reality, and into somewhere else? Now, there's a lot of different interpretations of this, but generally these areas would be called a liminal space. And this is something that's very interesting to me. I like the concept, not of the effects of it, but just the nature of a liminal space. The name itself, the word liminal, it comes from from the Latin word limen, L-I-M-E-N. It means threshold. It's any point or place of an entry or a beginning and exiting. A liminal space may refer to the time between the what was and the next. One up-and-coming meme of this that's been generated by these ideas is the idea of something called the back rooms. In reality, we have the front rooms. Like, that's where we are right now. That's where you spend 99% of your time, right? The places that are familiar, the places you know, even the places you've never been, but you know, and if you were to go there, you would not feel strange, you would not feel transitory, you would not feel uncomfortable. But on your way there, you might just run into some of these places. And it's interesting to me because we've all experienced places like these, even if we don't know it. But when you think back on it and you really think about the feelings you had in a certain place, one that you didn't linger at because it's not in our nature to linger in these liminal spaces, but one that you passed through, you had an uneasy feeling, or the most common feeling is one of loneliness. Like it is a world that is uninhabited. It is a dead world, and you are there alone, and there is no other human being around. There may be rooms for days, there may be windows, there may be an entire courtyard, and there may be a world beyond that, but there is nobody there. And if you think back on it, there have been a lot of movies with these types of themes in them, and they made us uncomfortable. But we couldn't quite place the why of it. It is a sort of magnificent desolation, right? Like the Langoliers, okay? The Stephen King Langoliers. The airport terminal it was an airport terminal, okay? It was an entire airport, but everything was just a little offset. Everything was what it should be, but it was not what it should be at the same time. Not exactly what it should be. And in their case, the plot was time, right? They had to catch up to time, so everything was old and stale. But when you take that plot and set it aside and really look at it, like the idea of a space that you know you've been in, but it's not the same. It's not quite right. And you get that feeling of, I need to keep moving through it. I need to get through this quickly because I don't want to stop. Or this space, to me, is a transitional space and I need to move through it. That to me is extremely interesting. I like the idea of it. I think it's interesting to explore because it's not so much as believing that these places exist, but we make them real somehow. Even if they are not real, we make them real in our minds. Why do we do that? Why are these places to us a place out of time? It brings up, to me, some interesting questions. Why is this a thing for humans? Why do we feel uneasy or fearful in certain places? For no reason, for no good reason that we can tell. You might attribute it to something paranormal or a feeling that you have. But more often than not, I think this might have something to do with it. Do liminal spaces exist without us? Or do we make them what they are? Do humans interpret this as something and then make it into that something? Or do they just exist? And if they exist on their own accord, why? what purpose would that serve? Would they exist without us? And if they do exist without us making these places what they are, if they are this way on their own accord, why? If they exist on their own, what can we do with them? If anything. And finally, what if when crossing these thresholds, we stopped, we turned around, and we stayed?